that was changed under President Trump and the last Congress. The funding was based on population. In this Congress, it was based on the unemployment rate. It seems that it almost incentivized states and local municipalities to keep the economy shut down, to implement arbitrary restrictions. And then on top of it, they also prevented states from lowering taxes. Those states that did receive the money that could not use it for tax reductions. I had actually sought to freeze taxes and require those states that were receiving it to not now, have their cake and eat it too, take the money from the federal government and then increase the property taxes, for example, on the city level or the income taxes in the state level. And because of that provision that was placed, we're now seeing the opposite occur, where the New York State legislature and the governor are saying they want to further increase taxes. And, we know that that's already driving people out of the state. I wanted to know what kind of impact you think that will have, and do you think that's something that should be revisited by Congress so that way the burden is not further placed on New Yorkers that live there?
I never understood the perverse incentives that money would be generated, cash from Washington would be generated to states on the basis of their higher unemployment rates, because that is an incentive to keep the economies locked down. And the whole point of this, as several have observed today, we've got to open up the economy and open up the schools. We've created, very grave consequences for children, for parents, for the workforce, for women, for minority groups. We have got to get the lockdown ended. Let's open up everything. That's why I think the only good stimulus is vaccine. And the other point I'll make on New York City, look, I'm reading, I guess this morning or yesterday, New York City is being proposed that New York City would have a 15% personal income tax. Is that, this is coming from Albany or the legislature. To me, that's just extraordinary, because the city has already lost lots and lots of people, one of the worst records in the country. Smart folks are not going to stand around and pay a 15% income tax. They're just not going to do it. And the devastation to the city's economy would be even worse than it already is. And New York City is, I regret to say this because I'm a lifelong resident, Ms. Maloney is in fact my congresswoman and has been for a very long time. But the city has not been in good shape, and a 15% tax rate would be awful. I mean, some of these states have surpluses. Some of these states have surpluses and they're still raising taxes. Now, that has no macroeconomic sense in my judgment.
Yeah, and as you drive the wealthier New Yorkers out, obviously the middle class, the working class are left holding the bag and the burden gets placed on them. With regards to the CDC and opening schools, because it was mentioned earlier that Republicans voted against the money for the schools. However, there was $25 billion was the estimate of the CDC to reopen America's schools. And in the December package, there was $64 billion put in, which is more than enough. So only under a mismanaged government would it cost 8 times as much than the original estimate to do what we're supposed to be doing here. So really the burden has been, the $64 billion was approved. It's been there since December. It's been sitting there, most of it unspent. We've given some to New York. New York has not fully reopened the schools. And so do you really think this is an issue of more money needed, or is it just an issue of these local municipalities doing their job and just reopening?
Well, I think it's an issue of reopening. I think it's an issue of ending the lockdown. I mean, look, in the bipartisan packages last April and last December put hundreds of billions of dollars. I helped negotiate these bipartisan packages. Hundreds of billions of dollars were allocated to states for schools, for education. And what we're seeing, and one of the other members raised that, is in a lot of states around the country, the teachers don't want to teach. A lot of these urban teachers union, I regret to say, I'm not against teachers. I think it's the leadership that does the damage. My wife and our 2 sisters-in-law were all teachers. But the point I'm making is They don't want to teach in the urban districts. The mayor of Chicago had to fight her own teachers union to get them to teach. The CDC has said many times it is safe to teach even without the vaccine, but now the vaccines are proliferating. So I don't understand this. I think we have wasted a lot of money. And I think too much spending is, going to be an excuse to raise taxes, and that tax increase is going to be devastating to this economy. We can have a great recovery. We can have a great recovery if we limit spending, keep taxes low, keep regulations low, and keep energy portfolios large, not small. Then we can have a terrific recovery, by far the best in the world.